to start is consistency, because we all have our internal clocks or circadian rhythms, which helps us to know when we're supposed to be awake, when we're supposed to be sleeping, and helps align that circadian rhythm or internal clock really controls a lot of other systems in our body. And so to prevent feeling like you have jet lag, right? You want to be consistent with your bedtime, consistent with your wake up time as much as possible. And then you also want to aim to get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, especially as an adult, as much as possible. Of course, there'll be fluctuations, life happens, but really you want that to be the norm rather than the exception. And then then the next thing I would say is having a routine. So we're all so busy. This world, everybody's hustling, grinding nonstop. And so you get into bed and your mind is racing, or you have a hard time settling down. And that might be because you don't have a routine. So find ways to kind of decrease that stress level. Do some breathing, some prayer, some yoga, take a bath, have a soak in the bathtub for a bit. Really having a routine is so important. And then the environment is what you were talking about. So you want to make sure your bedroom is cool. Think of it like a cool, dark cave. So cool because your core body temperature drops, and that helps promote quality sleep. Dark because your brain produces melatonin in response to darkness. So if your room is brightly lit, your brain is going to think, oh, it's still daytime. And melatonin is the sleep hormone that helps you sleep. So you want your room to be dark. And then you want to pay attention to noise, right? Is there noise in the neighborhood? Do you have a spouse that's snoring that refuses to see a doctor? In that case,
grandparents slept in separate bedrooms because of that.
yeah, it's very common. In that case, you may need to get earplugs or a white noise machine, something to mask out that noise. And then the technology, right, you alluded to, because what that does, again, it gives off this light that tricks our brain to think it's daytime. And then the content we're consuming also is very activating. So it's going to do the opposite of helping us to wind down to sleep. And then finally, I usually will recommend like being intentional about what you eat. So caffeine is a stimulant. So if you drink coffee or iced tea or soda,
Do it early in the day.
Yep, you want to do it early in the day, probably latest by 1 p.m. Because that stays in your system. Alcohol is another one, right? A lot of folks have nightcaps. And so alcohol is a sedative. So it'll help you to fall asleep, but it gets broken down in your system so fast that then it kind of disrupts your sleep over time.
Oh, wow.
You also want to try to avoid. And then if you have sleep apnea, you should definitely not be drinking alcohol to sleep, because that can make your muscles really much more relaxed.
Oh,
and
no.
can actually worsen your sleep apnea.